Welcome to Abnormal, the podcast for normal people who want to do abnormal things. Today's guest is someone who genuinely redefines human limits. Dean Karnazes isn't just an ultramarathon runner, he is the ultramarathon runner. This is the man who ran 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 days. He holds the world record for the longest non-stop run by a human, where he ran 560 kilometers non-stop. That's 80 plus hours without sleep. And he's taken on some of the harshest races on Earth, which means he now has some of the best stories on Earth. Death Valley at 50 degrees centigrade, the Gobi Desert, the South Pole, and my personal favourite, having to go number 2 whilst running on a treadmill for 24 hours in Times Square, New York. In this episode, we go deep into Dean's story, his unique physiology, which has made him the testing subject for sports scientists all around the world for the last 30 years, the insane challenges he's taken on, and what pain actually feels like for someone like him. Before we start, it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe and leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're currently listening to on, because it does genuinely help grow the show and it helps me continue to bring on amazing guests such as Dean. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. So Hong Kong, we were saying, Dean, have you been here much before?
I was in Hong Kong for one night, and it was one of the wildest nights of my life. I met with Jackie Chan, the actor.
Wow.
Yeah,
you're doing the best that you could possibly do when you come to Hong Kong, meeting the GOAT.
Yeah, well, we went out, and it wasn't quite the experience I was expecting because I don't know if I should say this, on record, but this guy can party.
Wow.
Let me tell you, we started with champagne, and then it was vodka, and then it was tequila, and then it was cigars, and then it got even wilder from there. So it was like an all-nighter with Jackie Chan. And he told me the next day he had a movie coming up in 6 months. He said the next day he was going clean. He said he was going to put on a big, like heavy, puffy ski wear, like a North Face jacket, get on the treadmill for 6 hours and just sweat it out for like 2 weeks. He said in the next 6 months, he was going to like reconfigure his body. So that was kind of, he said, that's how I roll. He's like, I get out of control and then I get really disciplined and do a movie. Yeah.
I mean, I bet you were thinking that 6 hours, is that
it? You wimp.
Wow. Is that all you got? So how did that come about, Dean? How did you meet Jackie Chan? Was that an organized thing, or was that kind of like you just bumped into him?
No, it was semi-organized. He was an investor in the company that brought the North Face to Hong Kong.
Wow.
So I was with the North Face as an athlete, and they connected us, and we all went out.
That's unreal. What did you think of Hong Kong as a place? Did you get to see much of it?
Yeah, I mean, it was a whirlwind tour, but it was dichotomous to me, and it was quite artificial, if you will. Very man-made, but the people seemed unique. It was like a unique cultural experience. I travel the world, and one thing that I still love is, although we're more globalized than ever, is that there's still unique cultures across the world. People keep their cultural heritage for some reason, even if they don't want to. And you pick up on this when you travel to places. Hong Kong, like San Francisco, where I'm from, is very international. That was one thing it immediately struck me is, it was kind of a melting pot, which I really like. I like putting together people from different backgrounds and seeing, how things work out.
Yeah, it is very much a melting pot, East and West. I'm surprised you haven't hit some of the trails here. It's very, very famous for some of the trail runs. And I mean, I've only very much scratched the surface of it, right? But I've spoken to some of the athletes here that have really hit them hard. And apparently they're some of the best in the world. I don't know if you know if they're famous within the ultra runner community. You can tell me more about that.
Yeah, very much so. And I just, they're on my list. As we talked about before the interview, Athens is on your list, Athens, Greece, to visit. And, some of the trail races in Hong Kong are legendary. So, yeah.
What are you doing in Athens then?
I'm 100% Greek, even though I'm Greek American. So I was born in the U.S., but, I love classics. and I'm kind of a constant student of learning. So I'm working on my Greek language skills, both modern and ancient Greek, and I'm reading a lot of the classics. Starting with Pythagoras, Heraclitus, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. I'm just delving into this whole world, and it's fascinating. Yeah.
Well, I'm starting to feel incredibly underqualified to host this conversation. Were you going into your Greek history and Greek mythology? I was like, damn, I thought we were going to talk about running. I'm suddenly massively underqualified. Well,
Well,
that's great.
the original marathon started in Greece, in 490 BC, and I was, obviously being a marathoner and an ultra marathoner, I wanted to really learn the history of, how it came to be, and it was like, going down a rabbit hole. I just learned more and more and more, and it keeps getting better and better.
But why did you want to learn about the marathon? Like, what itch was it that you needed to scratch? Because there's so many people that have done marathons. Not many people go down and study the history of the marathon.
Well, that was the very reason I wanted to study history. So many people run the marathon and they don't realize what they're doing. That this is a unique sport. It's singular in its origins. I mean, it was a man that ran this, supposedly ran this, this route from Marathon, which is an actual place in Greece, a city, a beautiful city on the beach, to Athens. And then he proclaimed Nike, Nike. We say Nike, Nike, which means victory in Greek. Nike means victory. And then he died. So that's the legend. And, 2,500 years later, there are millions of people running marathons across the world. When you run a marathon, it becomes your whole identity. Like
It
it's
does,
like
yeah.
something, yeah. And they don't even know where it began. I mean, certainly other sports, football, basketball, they have interesting, golf, interesting backstories that started, 100 years ago. The marathon started 2,500 years ago. And it's like a really courageous act to complete a marathon. Most people just do it, to say I ran a marathon or, to get the medal. But when they learn the backstory, it's even more fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I had no idea. I've only ran 2 marathons in my limited time, and I still haven't signed up to my third, Dean. I still haven't signed up to my third. It's coming, but I would like to travel somewhere quite special to do it and do like a city one because I did my 2 in Hong Kong and the Hong Kong marathons. They're very famous, but they are 95% on a dual carriageway with no crowd. And I'm sure that doesn't bother you as the mental fortitude that you have. But for someone like myself, I really would love to actually have some support on the way around a marathon. So I think the next one might have to be one with a bit of a crowd. Um, Dean, if you had to estimate the number of marathons that you'd ran in your lifetime, could you put a number to it?
Well, a marathon is, 26.2 mile foot race, so or 42 kilometers. So it's a marathon is a marathon. I probably run close to 300 regular marathons. And then, obviously I do ultra marathons as well, which is, ultra in Latin means beyond. So an ultra marathon is anything beyond an ultra marathon. And I've done hundreds of ultra marathons as well.
Okay, so we really can't put a number on it. I'm going
I've
through
got
your
I've got all
list.
the medals, I've got all the medals, and
I've
I keep
seen
saying, like,
photos of them, and I didn't even know that many medals existed, man. Like, it's crazy that each one of them represents something so difficult, that people would work their whole lives, and that's a lifetime achievement for so many individuals. And to see them all hanging up, I've seen the photos of them on your wall, and it's just like, I can only imagine the amount of pain and sweat that goes behind each and every single one of them. Um, so, Dean,
each one is a separate story. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm sure you've got stories for days, and that's what goes into the books and the documentaries, and really amazing. There's a lot of content out there for other people to consume about your story and your life. So I do really appreciate you coming on the pod to share it live with the audience of Abnormal. Considering all your achievements, Dean, now, I'm not going to go through and just list them out, right? I'm probably going to do, after this, I'll do, depending on how this conversation goes, I'm going to separately record an intro for the episode to talk about, to tease the episode a bit. Of all your achievements, I'd love to know from yourself, which is the one that you're most proud of?
Yeah, it'll surprise you because I've run these 100-mile, 100-kilometer day races across places like the Atacama Desert in South America, the Gobi Desert, Death Valley. I ran a marathon at the South Pole, but my proudest achievement was running a 10K race because I ran with my daughter Alexandria on her 10th birthday. So that was my
That's,
pinnacle achievement is a 10K. Yeah.
that is so wholesome. That is so nice. And to list off some of the others, Dean, you're obviously very famous for running 50 marathons in 50 states across 50 days. And so I'm working in kilometers, Dean, right? So correct
Okay,
me.
let's talk
We're
kilometers.
gonna do miles and kilometers. I work in kilometers, but I know that marathon. We're normally talking miles. You're the longest uninterrupted run recorded, which was 350 miles, which is 560 kilometers nonstop, which was over 80 hours, and that's uninterrupted without sleep. Have I missed anything there?
I stopped to poo 2 times, so I peed while I ran,
Two
just making sure
times.
I'm taking in how much to
You
drink.
only pooed twice in 80 hours. See, I could do my normal day, right? My cushy life, and I still wouldn't be able to do that. Mate, that is
Yeah.
I kind of had to triple take on this one when I was kind of doing some research for the episode and digging some more about you. That's so I can't comprehend that kind of distance even in my head. Like you put it on a map, 560 kilometers non-stop. What kind of preparation goes into something like that? I know you obviously have a rigorous training schedule, but that is just like that's one extreme, right? How do you prepare for such an extreme event?
You do all you can to prepare, but the main thing you do when you try an endeavor like this is you turn off the mind. The greatest limitations we have are in our mind. So from the very beginning, you don't think about how far you have to go because it's so overwhelming. I can't get my head around it. Even now, I'm thinking that's insane to run through 3 nights. But you don't think, you prepare so that when you're standing at the starting line, you paid your dues. Like you don't take shortcuts in your everyday training. You don't follow the path of least resistance. You do the hard work just so you have in the back of your head, hey, I paid my dues. I deserve to be standing here and trying this. And then you just turn off the mind and go.
How? How do you turn off the mind?
For me, I'd focus on putting one foot in front of the next. So I say, just take your next footstep to the best of your ability and your next footstep to the best of your ability. You don't think about how much further you have to go. You don't reflect on the past. You just be in the here and now, the present moment of time, and you quiet your mind. And when thoughts come in, they're like clouds, they just pass through. You let it come in, and if it comes in, you let it pass. You don't ruminate on any thought. And this takes discipline. I mean, it takes a lot of self discipline to quiet your mind. I mean, even now, as we're doing this interview, we're thinking about a million other things, right? We're thinking about, what am I going to have for lunch? Did I feed the dog? I got this report that's due, whatever. But I don't let these thoughts come into my mind when I'm doing these ultra marathons. I just say, take your next footstep and your next footstep. And you go into this, like, I would say, like a Zen like trance where you're just so focused on your next footstep, nothing else matters.
Have you had moments though in all of your races and achievements where you've said that to yourself, right? Next footstep, but you just can't escape the thought process, the mental stuff that's coming in. You can't block it out. Have you had moments like that in the races?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, again, this too shall pass. I keep telling myself, like, you can get through this. Like, you've been here before. Just go back to your next footstep. Yeah, it hurts like hell. Yeah, this is horrible. But the other thing I do is I celebrate these really, tough moments. Like this is the shittiest moment I've ever had, I think. Can I get through it? This is great. This sucks. This hurts so bad. This is great. I love this shit. So you kind of, shift your paradigm on pain.
I swear to God, right? I've spoken to you now. We're going to speak a lot more. I've spoken to a few other ultra runners, and every conversation I've had, I'm like, these guys and girls just have a screw loose. There's something up there because you all talk
Thanks.
about pain the same way. You all talk about like chasing that pain, enjoying it, embracing it. Now, I would say, like inverted commas, an athlete myself. I used to play rugby professionally, so you could say that pain is one thing that I'm accustomed to, and maybe other nonchalant athletes out there would say the same. You'd run a 10K, you go to the gym, you might find that hard. The pain that you are talking about and your fellow colleagues and ultra runners, I think there's levels to it. You guys are you're talking about like toenails falling off, like serious tendon damage, ligament damage. Can you help us paint a picture of share some moments of in races that what type of pain are we talking about here? What levels of what are we going to in these races?
Yeah, I mean, I'll reflect just on the Athens Marathon that I ran a couple weeks ago, and this is a 42-kilometer race. It's in Athens, Greece, so it's tough. It's one of the toughest marathons there is. For me, it's only 42 kilometers, but still, it was brutal. I mean, it was hot conditions. It started to rain. It became humid, and people have pace goals in marathons. They want to run sub 3 hours or sub 4 hours, whatever it might be, and they come to Athens, with their pace goal, and they try to stay on this pace, and Athens destroys them. So I saw people staggering. I saw people collapsing. Ambulance people going on stretchers, completely incoherent. I mean, the look in their eyes, this glazed over look, there was just nothing in there. They were just cooked. So even, with as short as a marathon, it's 3 or 4 hours of just pretty much punishment, the second half of the marathon, where every step is like a little bolt of lightning. And to know that I'm going to take this next step and it's going to hurt like hell, and this next step, it really is a mental game. Certainly in the gym, I can push through reps. It's different because you can kind of see the finish line. If you're going to do, like 5 or 6 hard curls, it's going to sting, but it's quantifiable. Like you're going to reach the end pretty soon. Even running a marathon, when you're talking about hours and hours of pounding, it's a lot. It's a lot. Mm.
You're dead right. It's a lot. It certainly felt a lot when I did it, and I love the language you're using here, Dean, because it's like even though it's only a marathon distance, and I've heard you talk in other interviews and other bits of content as well, and it's true. You are so accustomed to these insane distances that it's crazy to even think that a marathon for you is, it's not a long distance, really. It might be intense if you go for a maximal effort, like just like a 5K could be intense, right? If you go for a maximal 5K, but if we're talking about volume and load here, is a marathon distance for you? I mean, could I go as far as to say that's just like a training run? Like you used to do them every day, right?
Yeah, I used to run before breakfast. But I
Oh,
mean,
Dean,
again, you shift your paradigm completely. Like, if I'm running a 4-hour marathon, on a trail somewhere by myself, it's much different than, getting into, even though I'm not competitive at that distance, it's just too short for me. I'm still going to push as hard as I can, to do my best. So it's still going to sting. I mean, and like you said, if I go run a hard 5K, it's going to hurt. I mean, it's over quicker, but I'm gonna, but then that said, if you want to run a 5K in an hour, yeah, it's a piece of cake, no problem. And these ultra marathons, are about that pace just for 30 or 40 hours.
what's the one race that you've been in the most pain in?
I ran this 250-kilometer 6-day stage race across the Gobi Desert, and the temperatures in the day were up around 35, 36, and then it was below freezing at night. And it was a stage race, so we were sleeping in tents every night on the ground. and it was self-supported. So you had to carry everything you needed for 6 days. And I remember the pack, I had chafing on my arms. Two of my toenails were about to come off. I didn't sleep for 6 days. It was so cold that night. I remember my teeth chattering, trying to sleep. It was just so cold. And I brought too light of a sleeping bag because I didn't want to carry all this weight. And that was probably the toughest race I've done.
What's going through your head when you're at night then, when you're not sleeping, your teeth are chattering, and you've got 5, 4, 3 more days left of this in the desert?
Yeah, I mean, it again. I try to turn off my head and not think about what is ahead. I mean, I learned that lesson, especially with running 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 days. I remember at the end of marathon 19, I was just cooked. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to get out of bed tomorrow morning, let alone run a marathon. And I got to do this for 31 more days. And I thought, you just got to stop thinking because the thinking is going to overwhelm you. So I just said to myself, you know, get up the next morning, walk over to the sink, splash some water in your face, have some coffee, pull on your shorts one leg at a time, lace up your shoes, and just get to the starting line. Okay, you're there at the starting line. Okay, just start running. Just be in the present moment of time, the here and now, and don't think about what's to come. Just be the best you can be at every given moment.
What are you like to be around as a person during these challenges?
I like to say I'm a good drunk because, running an ultra is it's almost like getting drunk with someone. You're peeling away these protective layers, and you're getting to the very essence of who you are. And I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I'm pretty, happy-go-lucky. I don't get super competitive. So when things get really tough, I get happy about it. I feel like most alive, most alert. But like I said, you can go drinking with a buddy you thought you knew, and when he gets drunk, you see a different side to them. So I think running an ultra marathon holds up a mirror in front of you like nothing else, and reveals who you really are.
Is there something about that? Because the exact thing you've just said there, the way you've described it, I've heard it a few times about these endurance races, which maybe other races don't have that ability to do. No matter how difficult for some people, like myself, a marathon is, maybe it's still not enough of a an endurance challenge to have that mirror show up in front of you to see really peel back the layers. Is that a feeling that you knew would happen, or was that something that kind of caught you out on the first ultra you did? And just talk to us about what that exactly is like, having in those vulnerable moments, having that mirror in front of you and seeing your character on show.
Yeah, I mean, I think that running a marathon, and we'll stick with the marathon because a marathon is an incredible achievement. For you to say to me, I've only run 2 marathons, it's quite
That's only
revealing
because I'm
because
talking to you, Dean. If
yeah,
I'm
yeah, I
saying to
mean,
anyone else, I'm like, I've ran 2 marathons, I'm
yeah,
amazing. But to you,
exactly,
I'm
you
like,
should.
oh gosh.
Because you've done more than 99.9% of the population, so you've done something remarkable, but you've only done two. But for me, running a marathon, it builds character, right? It builds your character to be able to do this, but it also reveals character. Like when you got into those tough moments, you had thoughts, right, that you probably have never encountered before. Like, what did you think about? You kind of turned inward and said, do I have the fortitude to do this? Can I keep going? Can I keep pushing this hard? So you have this internal dialogue with yourself, and you learn who you are. So I think that the lesson from a marathon is not a lot different than an ultra marathon. I think anytime you step beyond the limits of what you've done before, it's a journey into the unknown. You're in uncharted waters, and it reveals who you are.
It's true. But I would push back on that and say that for me, I think the more impressive thing about a marathon um, is the preparation phase. If you have an objective in mind, I mean, you could say this about all distances, but okay, if we were to really differentiate the marathon versus the ultra marathon, for me, I was very proud of myself because of my marathon prep. so as you said, I stood on that start line and I knew that I'd done the work. So whatever happened, happened. And it kind of allowed me to enjoy the marathon because it got hard and it got sucky, but I kind of enjoyed those moments. However, and again, I've never done one, so I'm looking for your expertise here. With an ultra, no matter how much training you do and how much preparation you do, I feel like it's still a long enough distance to really break you down. And no matter how fit you are, no matter how prepared you are for this race, and so whatever you go into that race feeling like, there's probably always going to be a mirror moment where you're going to have opportunities to reveal what your character is. That for me, from the outside, would be a clear difference between a marathon and an ultra marathon.
I think what you're saying is absolutely true, but I also think you said something revealing, and that is, you learn that you don't skip on training, that you're a pretty self-disciplined guy, like you paid your dues, where someone else might, say, God, I really don't, you know, do what I'm supposed to do. Like I cut corners, like and you learn about yourself. And some people say that's just who I am. Like I'm going to skimp on my training and try to just wing it. Other people say, no, I'm going to pay my dues. I'm going to show up, for that group run that I don't want to show up for when I'm hungover or whatever. So you learned about yourself just in the preparation. Certainly, you never reached your real breaking point on that marathon. If you were to run, 100 kilometers, you might have a different experience. I mean, you
That's
might
what I
reach that
mean.
point.
That's what I
Yeah,
mean.
where it's just, you just say, my God, it feels like someone's hitting me with a jackhammer every step I take. I'm going to stop. So that is definitely more a confrontation with yourself the further the distances, you go.
And when you hear those voices now, Dean, when you do these races and you push yourself, is it easier to ignore them because you've done it so many times in the past?
Well, I mean, I'm not a young man anymore, so the challenge has changed. I mean, now that I'm more mature in my racing career, it is can I keep doing this stuff? So it's a different sort of voice that's talking to me, and I also know that if I really want to finish a race, uh, that commitment is terminal, if you will. I mean, I'm either going to finish the race or I'm going to collapse on the race course. Like I'm not going to stop. That's it. And so they're either going to take me out of here in an ambulance, or I'm going to get a medal around my neck. And it's just black and white. There's no in between. Those are the two options I have when I start a race.
Learning lots about your mindset here, Dean. Talk to me about this is a well documented story. How you actually got into running. Now, apologies in advance because I know you've told this one a million times, but it's such a great story, and I want to hear it live. So, what's your running arc? How did it start?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start back to my earliest childhood recollections, which was running home from kindergarten when I was a little boy. I remember sitting in the classroom just so fidgety and just waiting for the bell to ring. And when the bell rang, I just ran out of the classroom. And I remember running home. I can't remember how far it was. It was probably maybe 1.5 or even 2 kilometers. And it was like complete freedom. I just felt so alive when I was outside moving, and I felt so dead when I was sitting there, sitting still in a classroom. So I ran competitively when I was in high school. My first year of high school, we won the league championships, and I thought, okay, that's as far as I'll ever take my running career. I didn't think I was very good at it. Like, you're kind of mid pack. You helped the team. We won. Go out on a high note. So I stopped running when I was 15. Fast forward 15 years, and on the night of my 30th birthday, I'm in a bar, in a nightclub with my buddies doing what a lot of us do on our 30th birthdays. I was getting very drunk. And at midnight, I told them I was leaving, and they said, what the hell? Where are you going? It's midnight. It's your 30th birthday. Let's have another round of tequila to celebrate. And I said, no, I'm going to run 30 miles to celebrate instead. And I remember they looked at me and they said, but you're not a runner. You're drunk. And I said, I am drunk, but I'm still going to do it. And I walked out of the bar, and I didn't even own running gear at the time, but I had on these comfortable silk boxer shorts, like silk underwear, these silk boxer shorts. And I peeled off my pants and just threw them down the alleyway and started stumbling south into the night, knowing that this town called Half Moon Bay was 30 miles away. And I said, just run to Half Moon Bay. So about 10 miles down the road, about, I don't know, 15, 20 kilometers down the way, uh, I started sobering up and I thought, what the hell are you doing? This is absurd. But I don't know. God spoke to me. I remember looking up. It was maybe 3 in the morning. I was blistering. I was chafing. I was, in horrible physical shape. And I saw the stars and the heavens. And this voice just said, hey, you're a runner. Be a runner. Be who you are. Because I was a business guy when I was 30. I got three degrees actually, an undergraduate degree from uni, then a graduate school degree, and then an MBA, a business school degree. And I had a very comfortable life. I had this, great office in San Francisco. I had, great paycheck, bonuses, stock option, company car, all the shit that you think is going to make you happy. And it didn't. The formula wasn't working for me. And I found that I just love to run. So I quit my job and said, just be a runner, be who you are. And that was like 3 decades ago. And I'm still running and still making a living doing it. Yeah.
Tell you what, I've had some drunken walks home, but that tops the lot, I think. So
There's other things you can do under the cat.
how
Yeah.
soon after that did you then quit your job? And talk to us briefly about that, what that transition like? Because I mean, I can't imagine that you had a huge plan in place just to be a runner. You can't just wake up and I'm going to be a pro runner now. I'm going to make money off of this. So how was that?
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea how I was going to make money. I didn't know how I was going to pay the bills. So I kept my corporate job and started, doing everything that a lot of people that get into running do. Like I'd run before work, I'd run after work, I'd run at lunch sometimes. And just take like a bath in the sink, a quick bath in the sink, because I was going to work in a suit and tie back then. So I wasn't like I was, not going to lunches with people because let's go have lunch. Where the whole team's going out, and I'd say, no, I got other plans, and I'd go running. I never told them what I was doing. Uh, and I remember I was running out to the Golden Gate Bridge because I was living in San Francisco, and it's kind of this iconic footpath out to the Golden Gate Bridge, and I thought I was super elite. I was running maybe 10, maybe 12 kilometers, but fast. And no one ever passed me. I thought, this is great. I'm the fastest guy out here. And I was running home, and, in San Francisco, running home means running up a big hill. It's a very hilly place. And these two guys blew by me as though I was standing still. I mean, these guys were like a different form, a different species. I couldn't believe it. And they had packs on as well. And they just, I remember just kind of coughing in their dust as they, blew by me, crested the hill, and were gone. And I thought, my God, who are these guys? I want to talk with them. And when I got to the top of the hill, those two guys are up there and they're doing burpees. So I asked the guy, I said, hey, you guys training for something? And they weren't very talkative. And one guy said, yeah. And I said, is it a race? And the guy's like, yeah. And I said, are there hills involved? And the other guy said, no, there are mountains involved. I'm like, oh, okay. And they got up from their burpees and they said, I said, well, how far is this race? And they said, it's 50 miles, so like 80 kilometers. I said, hold it. Continuous? Like you're going to run? Isn't that like more than 2 marathons? And they said, yes. I said, I mean, there's no campgrounds along the way or no hotels, no stopping points. And I said, buddy, the gun goes off and you start running. You finish when you cross the finish line. And the other guy kind of elbowed him. It's like, if you cross the finish line, looking at me like, this joker could never cross the finish line. And they turned around and just ran off. And I'm like, holy shit. So, I mean, I went to the library. You've probably never even been in a library. And I use this thing called the Dewey Decimal System, which is like microfilm, which you have no idea what this is. I mean, this is way before the internet. And I found out where this race was. I remember writing my check, filling out the form by hand and mailing it to him. It was a 50-mile race. I went there. I ran this 50-mile race, and it was the most brutal thing I'd ever done. I mean, I remember there were points where even the tip of my nose, I touched my nose, and it just was radiating in pain. And I finished somehow this 50-mile race. and I was destroyed. And I'm in this, the aid station at the finish, and I'm wrapped in this Mylar blanket. I'm kind of trying to sip some soup. I'm, dribbling all over myself. I'm just delirious. And I see these same two guys, and they're high-fiving each other, saying, "We qualified, we qualified." And I'm thinking, what'd you qualify for? The insane asylum? I mean, what the hell? You qualified for what? The guy's like, "No, buddy, we qualified for the Western States 100-mile endurance run." I'm like, "What? Twice this far?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, it's twice as far. It starts in Lake Tahoe at the base of a ski resort. The first 5 miles are just right to the very top of a ski resort. And then it's 95 miles through the mountains. You cross a river at night." I'm like, "Hold it, at night? You run at night?" It's like, "Yeah, you put on a headlamp and you run at night." And I said, "You don't stop?" He's like, "No, you try to finish in 24 hours. So it starts on sunrise on Saturday morning. You try to finish by sunrise on Sunday morning." And it's just the most insane thing I thought ever could be possible. And as they're walking out of the tent, the last thing they said to me is, "Hey, buddy, you qualified as well." And when they said that to me, I had this epiphany, like, my God, I've got to do this race now. Like, if I don't do this race, I will never live down this moment. I'll forever think to myself, "You qualified for this 100-mile race and you chickened out. Like, you didn't do it." So I signed up for the Western States 100-mile endurance run, and I did it. And I finished and thought, my God, this is something I never dreamed a human could do. And I just did it. Like, I can't believe I did what I just did, but I did. The human body's amazing. The human spirit's amazing. And I thought, you got to write a story about this. Like, I think people would dig this story. So I wrote a book. It was called Ultramarathon, Man, just because I wanted to tell this story, and also because I wanted to write a book. Like, it was on my lifelong bucket list, like go skydiving, swim with sharks, write a book. And I thought, if 5 of my buddies buy this book, I'll be lucky. And it was like this instant New York Times bestseller. So it was
Unbelievable.
wildly popular. It was published in like 20 languages. And I started getting, hundreds, if not thousands of messages from people, mostly in handwritten letters saying, "God, your story changed my life. Like, I wasn't a runner and I read this and I got up in the middle of the night after I finished your book and I went running, and now I'm going to try a marathon." So it kind of like the wildfire got lit, and then it just got better and better. I mean, the North Face came to me and said, "We want to design this shoe specifically for running on trails." Because trail running shoes didn't even exist back then. We were all running in regular road shoes. And they said, "Do you want to help us design this?" And I thought, that sounds like a good job. So I started working with the North Face. And can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine?
This is like
There were
one
no
thing after
trail running
another. This
shoes
is
back then.
insane.
Like, we were running, yeah, like Nike, like flats. And so I worked with the North Face and just, kept building. My career just kept building and building.
How soon after, what's the time gap between you quitting your job or turning 30 and having that moment to you writing and publishing this book? What's the time gap there?
It was about a decade, but before the book was actually published, I'd kind of transitioned out of my job and was working full time with the North Face.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
so it
That
was
that
about it was about
story,
5 years, of kind of living this half life of half an endurance athlete, half of a business guy, and then
that
I
I've
said,
got, you painted such a good image of like the hills of San Francisco, meeting these two guys, and all I can help think of, it sounds like a villain arc in a superhero movie. Like these two guys just like laughing at this guy being like, "Oh, you'll never make it, little boy," and then boom,
exactly. They were he's like,
boom, the
but
ultra runner is born.
yeah.
Have you ever had any contact with them since then?
No, in fact, it got better and better. I saw them at the Western States because they ran that year as well, and I passed them.
So that's what we
And I
wanted
learned,
to hear.
yeah, I talked to them for a while. They were Army Rangers, and they were doing it together. And one of them, like, seemed like he hadn't even run, like he was fresh as a daisy. And this is about kilometer 120, I would say, where I passed him, and his buddy was destroyed. He was puking. He was just a mess. But the other guy wasn't going to leave him. He's like, we don't leave any, we don't leave a soldier behind. We're in this together. And and they said good luck to me. I mean, that was the last thing they said is, "Hey, buddy, good luck. You're killing it."
Oh,
And,
that's
and then I
nice.
haven't seen him, haven't heard from him ever since. Yeah.
See, in my head, I had them painted out as like the bad guys, and they'd spark this flame, but they're actually really nice guys. So I take it back.
Yeah, they were. They're very supportive in the end. Yeah. And I mean, good on them. They're, the one guy could have just, I don't know, he just like one of them seems so fresh. He could have maybe won the race. I don't know, but he
Right.
wasn't going to leave his buddy. Yeah.
So, Dean, there's again, as part of your story, with you doing all these challenges, there's also a massive physiological side of things as well. And it's fair to say over the years, you've been treated like somewhat of a lab rat at times because you are literally one of those athletes that has been studied. And to see how you're doing what you're doing, as well as all the hard work, all the training, all the dedication and sacrifices that you've made to have these lifetime accomplishments. Um, but there's also a physiological side as well. So, can you share with us what were the main discoveries that the scientists, the expert, the sports scientists made about when they studied you and put you through these tests?
Yeah. They found that I don't accumulate something called lactic acid. So lactic acid is kind of a byproduct of your metabolism, and it can be a limiting factor. We hear a lot about lactic acid and how it, makes your muscles burn. It slows you down, and it can stop you. Every endurance athlete, even you have a higher ability to clear lactic acid from your system than a layperson that's not a runner because you're an athlete. But they found with me, it was just like next level. They don't know why. They think it could be possibly genetic. My mother's bloodline comes from an island in Greece called Ikaria, which is one of the blue zones. I don't know if you've heard of the blue zones.
Yeah.
It's like a place where like the indigenous population lived the longest. And Ikaria has the highest concentration of centenarians, of people that live beyond 100. And they think maybe there's something related to that. But they don't know. They just said that, you seem like you could run forever. Everyone produces lactic acid, but your body clears it out. They said your body's ability just to get rid of lactic acid is incredible. Yeah. I mean, I've never really had a proper muscle cramp.
That was my
I've
next
run, I've
question.
run,
Like
yeah,
in
I've run
terms
with
of like
people.
layman's terms, what does that actually look like? What does that feel like? You've never had cramps. You've never experienced muscles seizing up and cramping up or anything like that.
No, I haven't. And I've seen people that, I've run with people that have cramps and it looks like it really sucks. I'm glad
It
it
sucks,
looks
Dean.
horrible.
It sucks.
It looks horrible. Yeah. Yeah.
That is crazy. At what age were you when you found that out?
I think I was my mid to late 30s when they first tested me. Mm.
And do you mind me asking how old you are now?
Ah, well, you want to ask my biological age or my chronological age?
Whatever you want to go with. Whatever you're
My
comfortable sharing.
biological, I'm in my mid 40s in my biological age, but my chronological age is north of 60.
And how are you measuring your biological age?
It's a if you have a smartwatch, it does it. I did some blood tests. One looks at your telomeres, which are the caps on your chromosomes. Others, they look at your biomarkers, your heart rate variability and all that kind of thing. I mean, if you have a Garmin now or a Sunto or any of even an Apple iWatch, it'll estimate your biological age. It's not as good as, being tested, but it'll give you a good indication if you're right around your actual chronological age, younger or older.
And apart from the ability to shift lactic acid, is there anything else that the doctors and sports scientists discovered about you that enhance your ability to perform?
They said that my biomechanics are really good for running. Like I don't pronate or supinate. My everything is my alignment is really good for running. I've always been a natural like 4-foot striker, 4-foot or midfoot. So the the way that coaches now teach you how to run, with like a slightly forward lean, accentuated arm swing, shorter, quicker foot strikes. I've always naturally run like that. So, your biomechanics and your alignment is hereditary. I mean, you get a lot of this from your parents. There's a saying that the best thing you can do as a long distance runner is to choose your parents well. So I think I did a good job there.
Pat on the back to
Thanks,
your
mom and
parents.
dad. Yeah.
And I've got to ask, right? How's the body feeling now? Like, how are the joints? How are the tendons, the ligaments? Because I asked this, right? A little personal anecdote. I worry. I'm 30 years old. I actually ran 30 kilometers on my 30th birthday. A little hat tip to yourself there, Dean.
Yeah, because you're
And
yeah.
but I kind of basically woke up and shat myself because I woke up on my 30th birthday and I was like, oh, my back hurts, my knees hurt. I've had a few knee surgeries in my rugby days. And I worry about my joint health moving forward. So I've changed a lot of my program now to mobility or active mobility and not letting the ego get in the way, basically. So I've got to ask, how's your body feeling?
It's definitely not a younger body, but it's still, I think for my age, it's pretty, it's holding up pretty well. I certainly have more knee pain, joint pain now than I did, but I've also compensated by working out harder than I've ever worked out. So, my,
What? That does not
yeah,
make sense.
my
Explain
physical
that.
strength has
Explain
not
that.
decreased that much. Yeah. I mean, I'm still curling as much as I used to curl. I'm still doing, lifting as much as I used to lift. So, but I'm pushing harder. I mean, I'm doing, shorter duration workouts with heavier weights. So I've kind of shifted the way I work out. I'm certainly not doing the volume of running that I used to do. I mean, sometimes I'd run, you know, 200 kilometers in a week, sometimes more, and I just can't do that now. So I'm running. I've changed the way I work out. I mean, I'm doing a lot more what are called hill repeats. So running up a pretty steep incline as fast as I can, which is low impact because you're not moving very quickly and you're climbing. I also do like this forced hypoxia by only breathing through my nose, which is brutal. So I force myself to only nose breathe. I close my mouth and it's great. You get an incredible cardiovascular workout with not a lot of pounding and impact. So I've shifted around the way I train and work out.
That's so interesting because I think we hear a lot now about different methods of training, especially on social media. You hear a lot about zone two and all that sort of stuff. And I've got a
Right.
few people that run up and down the promenade in Hong Kong that will do the nasal stuff as well. And people are always looking for hacks, right? And biohacks and cheat codes and shortcuts. I'm not saying yours are shortcuts because they're definitely not. But if you did have to give any advice, Dean, to people looking to increase their fitness and increase their volume, aerobic volume and capacity, like myself, for example,
Right.
what advice would you give, considering that we have a normal lactate acid threshold and we're born like mere mortals, let's say?
I mean, I would encourage people just to completely shift their paradigm on the way they view themselves. So start looking at the world through the lens of being the best animal that you can be. It's not just one thing. I mean, it's everything that will enhance your ability to be the best animal. So your diet, your certainly your training, your cross training, your sleep, all of these factors, even your interpersonal relationships. If you have harmonious interpersonal relationships, you can perform better. If your life is a mess behind the curtain, that's going to negatively impact your ability to perform. So everything you do, maximize it to be the best animal you can be. And, certainly that's the way I look through at my life. You being an athlete, being a rugby player, you inherently have, you have the discipline of an athlete and it probably carries over into, the way you eat, your sleep, everything. So it's not just one thing, it's everything.
Have you always been like that once you made the shift from becoming a runner? Was did you always then get the stars aligned in your life and realized that you needed to move in this direction with your sleep, your diet, your relationships? Have you always had your kind of ship in order, or has it been built over time?
No, it's evolved over time. I mean, when I when I'll never live down the story of ordering a pizza one time when I was out on a run. So, I was running this 12-person 200-mile relay race, and I was a team of one. I didn't have any teammates, and I was out in the middle of nowhere on this backcountry road. It was like 11 at night. I was starving, and I had a Motorola flip phone. I don't. Do you even
Fa-
know what that is?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm old enough to know what the old
yeah.
Motorola
I had
flip
a
phone is.
Motorola flip phone on my credit card, so I ordered a pizza, and I had it delivered to me on the road as I was running. So I used to eat so much shit. I mean, I just thought a calorie was a calorie back then. And this is again, yeah, I'm talking about the early and mid '90s when I'm running these ultra marathons. I just thought get in calories however you can. It doesn't matter what form they are, just get in calories. And a lot of it was just junk food. So I've learned that that's not the best way to fuel your body, and I've shifted over time. But I've always been pretty disciplined about working out, about finding the best thing for me. I just didn't know what it was at the time.
Do you drink alcohol?
I do. Yeah, I do. I love mostly wine. I don't drink too much hard spirits anymore, but I probably have indulged in too much alcohol in my life. The thing is, I don't see any negative repercussions. Maybe it's gonna, sting me in the butt as I get older, but I really don't. Like having a glass of wine or two at night just kind of it chills me out a bit, and I don't drink to excess, but I enjoy alcohol. Yes.
Yeah, no, I asked because it's not. I wouldn't say it's like the talk of the town, but I think a lot of people are. I don't want to say demonizing it, but a lot of people are going completely teetotal and thinking that is the only way to get things done. And I did a period recently of 5 months where I was completely sober, and that
Mm,
wasn't even, I'm not a big drinker anyway, so it's not really a big deal, to be honest. I didn't miss it at all. I was in a period of my life I'd quit my job about 12 months ago now. So I really needed to focus in and lock in and be like, right, I can't afford to be a bit tired on a Sunday or a Monday. I just want to have this period. Um, but I think it's all about balance, right? Your relationship with different things, and this is not just alcohol, with food, with anything. From my experience, especially recently, I feel like I'm getting more from having a couple beers with a friend than what it would take away from me, if that makes sense. The social element that I'm enjoying is giving me more than maybe the lower sleep performance that I will get that night.
you're singing to the converted. I agree with you. I think that it's certainly a glass of wine for me. It loosens me up. It brings out the happier side of me, the Dionysian side of me. And the Greeks were very fond of drinking, and because of the way it loosens your personality, but not to excess. So I mean, the Oracle at Delphi said, all things in moderation, which I subscribe to wholeheartedly, except I'm an ultra
Running.
marathoner. So there's no more moderation with running, hundreds of kilometers at a time.
All
Yeah.
things in moderation, except for running, which I will overdo until the day I die. There we go. Well, they say the Greek diet, the Mediterranean diet, is supposedly the healthiest in the world, right?
It is. It is for sure. But the other thing is that the food here in Greece, where I'm at now, it's the food comes from the land. I mean, it's really great food. It comes from good soil. I mean, there's like the olives here are legendary. I mean, but it is because of where they're at. I mean, the Chinese love olives and they love olive oil, and they import it from Greece. And some enterprising Chinese businessmen thought, why don't we just bring some olive trees from Kalamata, which is a region in Greece where like some of the best olives grow, and we'll take them to China and we'll just grow our own olive trees, and we won't have to import them. And it just wasn't the same. The flavor wasn't at all. They couldn't reproduce it because, the amount of sunlight, the amount of rainfall, the salinity of the soil, the saltiness of the soil, all of these factors come together to produce the final food. And in Greece, it's just this magical, apothecary of elements that make the food really healthy.
This conversation has made me A, want to go run, B want to go to Greece purely for the food. So mission accomplished. Now, Dean, I've got to ask you a couple. I know I'm hip scopping back and forth here on different challenges, but I really wanted one of your challenges really stood out to me because you've not only done the Death Valley, the Badwater 50-degree ultra marathon, which you won. Am I right? You won that one, the Badwater.
I say I survived the fastest. Because when it's that hot, it's just survival. Come on.
I mean,
You're just
one
trying to
of
get the
the
hell out
most
of there.
famous ultra marathons in the world.
Mm.
And I've only ever seen pictures and videos of it, and it just looks fucking disgusting. But I wanted you to help me compare that one to then your marathon to the South Pole. Like two massive extremes here. Like, can you help us draw some comparisons between the two? How were they similar? How did they differ apart from the obvious temperature?
Yeah, I mean, running across Death Valley when it's 50 degrees, that heat is just it's stifling. So it completely owns you. I mean, even to get out of the car when it's that hot, it's just this next level of my God, I can barely stand outside of the air conditioned car. How am I going to run, 217 kilometers? Uh, but the South Pole, that was a different challenge because just getting to the South Pole is not easy. And then, camping out on the polar plateau when it's minus 20 degrees, that cold is inescapable. I mean, you can't, if you wanted to brush your teeth, you had to sleep with your toothpaste because everything in your shave kit is just frozen like a brick. So, it's just learning to adapt to that cold was really, really tough. And then running, but in both scenarios, when I run the Badwater Ultra Marathon in the midday heat, I put on this white suit. I mean, it's 100% UV protective white suit to not let the sun hit me because I found that even if you have 100% sunblock on, your skin will blister when it's that hot. So I cover up with a suit. Running the South Pole, you couldn't let any of the super chilled air touch your skin because you get frostbite and you couldn't breathe in the super chilled air directly because your lungs would freeze. So you had to wear this neoprene muffler in front of your face, a balaclava over your head, and goggles because your eyeballs will freeze. So, running in this kit like that was like running in scuba gear, literally. And the challenge was, how do you take this thing off and put food in your mouth or water in your mouth? Because as soon as you take this off, your lips turn blue. So it was unique. Yeah.
If you had to do one again, which would you choose?
Well, the South Pole Marathon, I'll tell you the backstory. It was the inaugural. So it was the first ever. And the guy that put on this event said there was going to be like 40 to 50 intrepid runners from all around the world, convening on the South Pole to run the South Pole Marathon. And there were three of us. And yeah, yeah. And it was so dangerous. I mean, we tried to do these training runs. We could barely run 2 kilometers from our base camp before we're just like, fuck, we're going to die. And then I'm thinking, how are we going to run, 42 kilometers? We can't even make it 2 kilometers without, everything in our body freezing. So it was, and the other thing is that, this guy was kind of a wild man. When we got down there to the South Pole, I'm like, what did I sign up for? But he said it was a 12-day journey. 31 days later, I stumbled back into San Francisco. So we got weathered in at the South Pole, which I found is pretty common. And, I would not go back to the South Pole. Yeah.
Wow, what a story! I love three people turned up. You've been sold
Yeah.
a pipe dream there.
Yeah.
And then there's another one, Dean, as well that I had to bring up because more selfishly, I hate treadmill runs. Right, I love running. I really don't enjoy treadmill runs because I would say I'm not mentally strong to actually complete a run on a treadmill. I just get so bored. Now, if I were to say Times Square and treadmill to you, what would you say back to me?
Did I hate treadmills as much as you? But yeah, I
Te-
ran for 24 hours on a treadmill. And it wasn't just 24 hours on a treadmill. It was on 2-story platform hoisted up in Times Square, which is, Times Square is a crazy place. And it was on summer solstice. So it was, the longest day of the year, June 21. And it gets hot in New York City and humid. And it was so hot and humid on this treadmill. And the big, the big plasmatrons, the big screens all around Times Square, they were televising me running. And I remember every time the screen changed to a different viewpoint, this like blast of radiation would come out. These screens were so damn hot. This blast of radiation just overwhelmed me.
That is
And
insane.
there were two things on the platform there's a treadmill and there's a little porta potty, a little toilet behind the treadmill. Cause what am I going to do? I'm running for 24 hours. And no matter if I had to go, pee or poo, I had to sit on this toilet because otherwise they're going to be broadcasting me standing there taking a pee. So I had to sit on this toilet and there's like this little curtain, like an umbrella that went around me, and I'd pull up this string and this curtain would go up so I could do my thing. And
That
it
is
was just,
hilarious.
it was hilarious. And after like 22 hours of running, I'm getting toward the finish and I'm cooked. I'm just so over this. And I'm like, oh God, I got to go big potty. Like it was the one time like I got to go poo so badly. So I sat down on this toilet. And there are hundreds of thousands of people in Times Square all looking up at me. And I got the umbrella up. Like, they can't see me. And then I hear this, I'm taking a poo. And I hear this. I'm thinking, what the hell's that? And I look up and there's a, a helicopter with a news camera looking right at me. I just kind of waved at him. Yeah.
Now,
What
what
the
can you
hell do you
do?
do?
What can you do at that point?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Oh
I remember
man,
after I
that
finished,
is hilarious.
yeah, I tried to set the world record and I came up short, obviously because it wasn't the ideal conditions, but I remember my hair was like so stiff, I could break it. It was, it was so dried out and stiff from all that heat from those television camera, the plasmatrons.
Was the motivation for that to just break the world record? Was that the reason for doing it?
It was a little of both. It was a fundraiser for prostate cancer. One of my friends died of prostate cancer, so it was a fundraiser, and it was also to launch a new energy drink that was competing with Gatorade. It was called Accelerate. So it was a new energy drink that was coming on the market. It was just like their big splashy launch.
Damn, man, you've done so many cool things. I feel like I'm going to have to go and run after this, and I'll send you a photo. It's like, what else can I do, man?
Just not on a treadmill, yeah. Not on a treadmill.
I can't leave this and just go to bed and eat my dinner. Like this is, I'm definitely not going to go on a treadmill. I'm not that mentally strong. Dean, I've got just a couple more questions to ask, very quick ones. First one is how would you like to be remembered when all is said and done?
Just as a runner, just a simple guy that loves to run. Yeah.
I love that. Don't overcomplicate it. And as you know, the podcast is called Abnormal. It's for normal people that want to do abnormal things. Needless to say, you are incredibly abnormal in all the best ways that I can possibly describe. For anyone out there wanting to do something abnormal in their lives, what's the one piece of advice that you would give to them?
Sign up for a run. If you hate to run, sign up for a marathon.
I love
Yeah,
that. And I suppose that
just
can be
do it.
used in
Yeah.
other areas of life as well. If you hate to do one thing, go straight headfirst into that one thing. It's the only way to get over it. Dean, it has been an absolute honor to have this conversation. Thank you so much for giving up the time to come on and share your insights and some stories. I know we could have gone on for hours because I am talking to the ultimate storyteller. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's great to chat to you.
Thanks for having me on, and maybe next time we can run together. That'd be even better.
Bucket list. I would love it. Maybe after a night out with Jackie Chan.
Lots of bad tequila. Yeah.
Cheers, Dean. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Abnormal. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing to the channel and give us a 5-star review in whatever podcast platform you are listening or watching on right now, as it goes a long way to help growing the show. Thank you, and see you in the next one.